Welcome back to episode number 28. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Fantastic.
Sure, are you sure?
Yeah, so in case the listeners aren't aware, I've just got back from Tomorrowland, and here I am recording this episode of Take Flight podcast. As you can imagine, my energy levels are sky high right now, so I'm really looking forward to this recording, guys.
Thank you for making it sure. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
no worries, man. No worries.
Really appreciate it.
How you guys?
So
how you guys feeling anyway? All good?
Yeah.
Always ready to go. Always.
Bless.
Perfect, man. That's what I need.
So on this week's episode, you're here with myself, Olu, Shawel, Daniel, and Pabilo. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about how much are we helping or hindering ourselves when it comes to setting age targets. So like by the age of 25, I want to be married.
Yeah.
Or by the age of 30, I want to have 1 million. So we're going to break into that and see, is that actually helping us or hindering us? And then we've got the book review, which will be taken by Pabilo. So looking forward to that, like always. So stay tuned and let's get started.
Take off, take flight with you. For we never fly, but we're flying.
Yes, I thought it'd be a very interesting topic to cover because it's like a version of setting goals and targets, but it's more specific on around a lot of the young generation today are sort of caught up in when I hit 25, I want to have, the car, the house, the girlfriend, the wife. When I hit 30, I want to have everything else as well. And I
I
start
don't
to
even think it's the younger generation. I can put my hand up and say
Well, we are the younger generation. Let's just say the millennials in that sense. And I start to wonder: is by having these, like you said, age goals, is it really helping us or is it hindering us? So just to get everyone's thoughts on, and I think it's also important for us to share our experiences on where we've said, I want to reach something by 30, and perhaps we're not reaching that particular goal. And how do we feel about it? Olu, I hear you laughing there.
I'm laughing because I'm like, did anyone actually reach any of those goals that they set? Because I was like, oh, I'm going to get married by the age of 25.
Why so early?
You had a marriage goal.
Oh my God.
Yeah?
Why so early?
Yeah, marriage goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a marriage goal of 25 because I was just like, one, I don't want to have kids when I'm too late. I want to be able to still be active. Are you laughing?
I'm laughing because these are like all valid points, but you're past 25 and you're still not married. So how does it make you feel?
See, this is the problem with having these.
No, but
this is what happens when you have those vulnerable conversations. Are we gonna? Should I talk about all my goals, or do we want to go straight into like?
No, I think before we move on, let's touch on that topic, Olu. I think it's very. No, wait. It's very personal, very early on.
Like
but I
2
think
minutes
we've
guys.
kicked off with a bang. So why not?
Okay, in terms of how do I feel about the marriage one? Okay, good question. No, no, I played. On the marriage one, I have
Be
two
honest. Be
feelings.
honest. Just be honest.
I'm split in terms of my emotions. One is I understand that I sacrificed. It's basically choices. Yeah, I believe life is about choices. So I didn't get married at 25, but I was able to have other experiences which I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if I was married so young. So there's a positive aspect of it where I'm like, okay, I'm able to have done or achieve certain things that I wanted to because I wasn't married. On the other side of it, then it starts to become a time pressure, which you've got to be careful about, because when you start to reach a certain age and you might set a goal like, oh, I want to be married at 25, and you haven't hit that goal or that achievement, whatever you want to call it, you start to think, okay, should I be rushing the process? And I'm always conscious about never rushing any process and understanding that there's a time for everything. So yeah, it's a mixture of content in terms of there was other experiences that I was able to achieve based on the fact that I wasn't married at such a young age. But then there's also the area of being anxious and, okay, I do want to get married, but I don't want to rush the process. And I want to make sure that I'm making the decision based on love versus just trying to hit a certain time or frame or period.
Yeah.
So how did you feel? How did you feel? Because that's really important. Kind of what you shared now that you're beyond 25. But at the time of reaching, or let's say when you was 24 and a half, and you knew it was unlikely you're going to get married at 25. How did you start to feel?
How you know? Not joking. How did I feel? I felt okay. Reason why I felt okay was because if I'm completely honest, I wasn't focusing on it as I should have. I think it hurts more if, let's say, I was looking for a wife at that particular time and then I didn't hit it versus, okay, by that time I was a consultant. So I was so busy like traveling and being like work. So I didn't have enough time to really think and process I'm about to miss that 25 goal per se. Does that make sense? So I think it would have been completely different if I was looking and searching for a wife per se, or trying to get married at 25 and not doing all the other stuff, and then not getting married at 25. I can imagine that would probably crush me or my emotions or etc. Yeah. But what about the rest of you guys? No one had the 25 goal? No?
I had 27 for that.
27.
Marriage.
When did you get married?
27.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No.
I'm being completely truthful.
But the thing is, I have a feeling that you didn't. Although you tell us, but I think it was coincidence that they happened to go at the same time, or what? How would you?
No. It was coincidence. The reason why I don't know why I said 27, but I think I do. I probably based that on my dad. My dad got married when he was 27. So I think just naturally looking up to him, I said 27. I don't know why. I didn't think any earlier. Maybe I just didn't see myself getting married any earlier. But as I approached marriage and I was 27, it didn't even dawn on me, or I didn't recall actually saying that. It was only afterwards I said, oh wait, I said, yeah, I wanted to get married at 27. And by coincidence, by chance, well, maybe not by chance, because like we said in a previous episode, be careful what you wish for, be careful what you say, because it will come true. And it's just the power of your words and what you say, how they manifest and come to life.
P, did you have a relationship goal?
No.
Because the way that you're hesitating with that question, is Lauren around or something?
No. She's there. She's around. But no, the reason I think the reason being is because I've been with Lauren for so long. We've just lived life together. It's not like I guess what's this wrong? What's wrong with this guy? No, I think I don't. I think the goals were around let's try and get engaged and get married before 30. That was probably a general goal, but because we've been together since, as you guys know, since the age of 15, you don't. It's no, we just sort of go hand in hand. We're just living together, and it's more. I think it was more just before 30. If it was, for example, I had to wait until 32, 33, 34, then yes, I would have been certainly frustrated.
That's interesting.
But no, for me, I think it's different because we've been together for so long. In terms of, I haven't really set not the same way I set other goals. I think that's maybe what I'm trying to say. I think I set other goals.
Take your time.
I knew it was coming. So yeah, no. It's a different goal setting for me, or has been.
No, it's interesting because when it comes to relationships and stuff, I've had zero goals on that stuff at all. It hasn't even been a priority to be very frank. But I think having goals and having that general timeline to achieve things, I think it's good because it gives you a sense of direction to go towards. But of course, if you're pushing yourself a bit too much and you don't get there, then you're just going to be disappointed and stuff, right? So,
but is being disappointed a bad thing? Because
the thing is, because
I've got a question. Olu, since you had this,
is this whole podcast going to be about just Olu?
No. It's a valid question. Since you had this whole kind of relationship goal of being married by 25, and now that you're past that, what are you doing about that? Or have you set a new goal? Or are you doing it? No, stop lying. I'm actually being serious.
The new goal is personal.
Okay, if it's too personal, okay.
So
that's fine. Okay, cool.
Olu's new goal was yesterday. Go on,
I got some good news. I got some good news for you guys. Guess what? No, I think
Oh, is it the trip? Is it the trip that you're gonna come back with?
I'm going to South Africa with you.
Um,
I don't mess with
I know,
married men.
but
Sorry.
hey,
no.
cool. You're gonna bring you're the third passenger. You are the third passenger on the way back.
Wait.
You're buying a one-way ticket for someone not gonna back in.
I think maybe the question. I think the question that is important is let's say, for example, the goal was at you set the goal at 25. You didn't manage to achieve it, and then what's the process in your mind of saying, okay, I'm going to first of all justify why I didn't reach it at 25, because we all do that. But then you've gone through a process where you've recalibrated and said, okay, the new goal is now 30. So you've done the same thing
Wait,
again.
who said the new goal?
How does that?
It's not 30. It's not 30. It's a day.
Let's just say, guys, come on. Let's just say it was. Yo, man.
Hey, Pab, don't hold him up, man. He's 30 in a couple of months.
Let's sorry. Let's say the new goal was 30.
It's 50.
How did you go about setting the new timeline?
So the way I did it was I think you're
Extrapolated the past.
So I think you're right. The first thing you do is try to explain why you didn't make the first goal. So I justified it based on my lifestyle, the traveling, the consultant. Made sense. Yeah. Then you sort of start to look at, okay, what should my new goal be, or should I set a time constraint? So in this particular situation or scenario, I decided to say, okay, you don't need to rush the process. Like in certain things, it's not a race, it's a marathon. Yeah. Me marrying someone maybe when I'm 30, 31, 32, 33 doesn't really matter as long as it's the right person. So you start to value, instead of the age and the time, you value making sure that you marry the right person in this particular scenario. So I think by you growing, I think that's what some people struggle with. You see certain people that are so stuck on a particular time frame that one, they don't get through that first stage of rationalizing why they didn't make it, so they internalize it. And then secondly, they just rush just to say, okay, I want to be married if in this particular situation. And I value marriage a lot more than just a tick box exercise. It's not
Than
a
a
tick
piece of
box
paper,
exercise. It's life partner. I honestly believe whoever you marry dictates how your life goes, and the success, the lows. It's a life partner. Yeah. So it's not something I could rush versus me saying, okay, oh, I want to, by the age of 30, I want to travel to 30 countries, for example. Yeah. That's not if you do or you don't do it. This is something very important that you need to take your time with. So I've moved away from actually having a time and just saying that I want to make sure that it's the right life partner.
We're stuck on, real quick, Dan. I want to just put this point in. I know we're stuck on marriage, but I think marriage is actually a big one, because a lot of people do say, oh, I know that part of this topic is around, I want to be married by a certain age. I want to be married before 30, have a family before 30. What do you say to people? What's happening? What do you say? Like Olu and Shaw especially, what do you say to people who? 1 second, man. 1 second. What do you say to people that find themselves in a situation where all of their friends are married apart from themselves? The second part to that question is, when Daniel's getting married, I'm getting married. What are you guys thinking and feeling? You're happy for us, but at the same time,
well, I hope they're happy for us.
Sure, start. Sure, you start.
Okay, so the first part in terms of how you feeling when your friends are getting married. So for me, I actually see it as it's actually an inspiration for me, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, relationships or getting married by a certain age or family by a certain age, it's never been a goal of mine. But obviously, naturally, the older you get and the more you see your friends who've developed as individuals and then see them in loving relationships. So I see it as a source of inspiration now. The older I get, the more I see my friends getting married, seeing how they've developed as individuals, and then how that's translated into the relationship and the partners that they have. For me personally, I love being around that and I love seeing that. And I think naturally seeing that more, the older I get, the older we get, then more I'm leaning towards wanting to have that in the future. Now, I don't know if I'm ready yet. So I don't know if pre-30 is even going to be possible. But I think moving towards it and seeing it and being closer to it, it does make you appreciate it a lot more. So I think it's a good thing. On the flip side, though, you know, when your friends start to get married, the number of people that you could have gone on holiday with before suddenly reduces significantly. So you got to make sure that for every one person in the circle that gets married, you try and find a new guy who's running around who's still single.
Sure, me and P are always available. That doesn't change.
That's true. Okay, perfect.
Sure. Do you also agree that it makes us look good as well? Like when you start dating and you introduce the person you're dating.
No. Don't try. No. Where's Olu taking it?
I want to see where Olu goes with this.
He's not from himself.
I'm talking about myself, but when you introduce the person that you're dating to your friends and they find out that, oh, some of your friends are married, they're like, oh, shoot. Okay, he's got some good friends around him. He's just not hanging around with guys that just
Okay.
On the flip side, though,
wait for me to land, guys. Yeah, wait for me to land.
All right, take flight. Ollie,
descending, land it, descend.
But no, it makes you look good. So to be honest, I love it. I've been blessed to say everyone that I know that's gotten married, or from what I see, have married the person that they truly love. And the person that's right for them. I don't have any friends that have got married and I'm like, ooh, man's taking a
oh my god.
I'd say thankfully I don't have that.
Yeah, thankfully.
You have some times where you're like, yo, someone's ticking a box. Like someone's just ticking a box. Thankfully I don't have that. So that gives me hope as well to say, okay, don't rush the process. Everything's the time thing. And there's certain people, you know, some of my guys are married. I've got friends who have got kids. And sometimes I look and say, okay, I see what they have. I want that in the future. I'm happy I don't have it now because the way my life schedule is set up right now, I don't even know if I could manage what I'm doing right now with a wife, kids. Like my time, everything will get adjusted. Like everything will get cut in terms of the amount of time you can spend outside of your family. Because when you have a family, you have to prioritize everything completely different. Yeah. So that's the blessing aspect of it that I see, that I'm not envious. But I'm happy that I can see my friends fall in love and look at, okay, this is something I can aspire to. And then also you can get some advice as well. So when you're going through the dating process, you can always pick up the phone, give them calls, because you don't want to get advice from someone like Shuel that hasn't succeeded in the... Whoa. That means succeeded. Wait, let me clean up. That means succeeded. I mean that you're not married. That's the goal. That's what I mean about succeeded. The goal is marriage.
Okay. But I would just say it hasn't been an applied goal as of yet. But I'm sure once I'll set it, I'll get there. So.
For sure, you're a handsome lad. You know, you get there easily.
So one other thought process with this topic is, I'm a firm believer in that they say a goal is a dream with a deadline.
I was about to say that. I was about to use your quote because I remember when Olu said it's nothing, no plan of his, and then like there's no set date. I was going to say the same thing you said. But
you know what's interesting, Daniel, is that I've gone back and forth with this in my own journey. When I've set, for example, a relatively big goal to achieve, let's say by the 25 or the 30 or the 35, we always seem to do it in fives. Yeah, I start immediately because of the goal itself. I start to get honestly a bit anxious, nervous, and I start to back off. I don't necessarily take as much action because now I find myself staring at this huge goal that I've got to start to work on. Versus, I know why she was laughing because versus saying, instead of having this whole by 30 I want to have this, by 35 I want to have this, let me just sort of keep the road open and I'll just sort of work on myself and work on my goals as I go along. And what's interesting is that it depends on let's say the time of the year or the season or how you feel as to which one kind of works better than the other. But I've tried both and it's a tough one.
But do you think overall it's helping you though, Pete, and moving you in the right direction? I think it does help to have a deadline, because otherwise then you're flying around it's like almost like if you say, look, my goal is to have X, Y, and Z, but I'll achieve it whenever I achieve it.
I don't know if it's as powerful as saying, look, this is the plan and we need to get there by a certain time frame. I
I
think
definitely don't think it's as powerful if you just put it and just leave it to achieve it whenever. You need to have a deadline.
you need to have a deadline. I think it's getting the right balance between is what your aspiration is. It's a little bit like big enough. It's big enough to keep you motivated and inspired, but not necessarily too big where it actually puts you off. Because I found myself putting things on a board, and the next day I'm not moving as someone that's going to achieve it.
But are you talking about like because there's a difference
No,
between like
'cause
goal settings, like yearly goal settings, and we're talking about like
Yeah.
big milestones. You see?
Yeah, but these are big marks. Let's say because we spoke about marriage is one of them.
Yeah. What other ones are you like? What did you set for yourself
let's say,
for 30? So you're going to turn 30 this year. What did you set for
It's
yourself?
funny. It's funny you said that. What did I set for myself at 30? I think I've set my goals now for 35 because I've only now
Because you didn't
realized
make 30 that you moved it to 35, or did you just
no,
not have
because you know
anything
the
at 30?
other thing I wanted to say as well is that most people, sometimes we also forget is that we've actually achieved. Everyone in their own right has achieved a lot where they are today, but we tend to forget that piece. We always tend to move the goalposts. So if, for example, most people say, okay, look, I want to be married, I want to have a good paying job, I want to have a nice apartment, I want to have, like, most of us have all that. I have all that, and I'm very thankful for it. And so it's like this element of, okay, let's move the goalposts and now try and get to something else. So if maybe one of my goals would have, like, I think I'm more focusing now towards the 30 or 33 and 35. But I think many, the average person would say, okay, by 30, I want to be a multi-millionaire.
Did you have that as yours?
I don't think I did. I had
that as one of mine. I'll be honest.
No, I don't think I had.
Thank you. And Daniel, in regards to that,
Yeah.
are you a multi-millionaire?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Just in case you are, I don't know. Sometimes you don't know Daniel.
No, but even if he is, he wouldn't tell you. Now the thing is, interesting, Daniel, with that goal, yeah. So you say you want to be multi-millionaire by 30. Two things.
Yeah.
Why did you want to have?
I didn't say multi. I said I said a millionaire. I remember I put it as a Facebook post, and it came up. I think maybe a month or two ago.
Do you want to know what's so funny about this is that all of us, yeah, I think somewhere along the line we've all said we want to have a million by 30, but then what happens is as we get closer, we change the million goalpost. So we say, okay, you know what? Not a million in cash anymore. I want to have a million in assets, not a million in assets. I want to have a million in net worth, or something like that. Whatever's easiest to get to.
Then the funny one is when you switch the currency from pounds.
Let me get to a million US dollars. Let me get.
It's true, you know, because I've often converted on like, oh yeah, I'm this in a different currency.
Yeah. No,
you're a millionaire.
Wait. Just wait, real quick. Just as we're on this topic, yeah. As we're on
multi-billionaire.
On this topic, I actually measure my net worth by US dollars. The reason being, wait, you men are laughing. The reason being, yeah, is because it's the world currency.
Okay.
It's the world currency, and it happens to be the bigger number. But yeah, that's just funny. So, but yeah, Daniel, why did you set that goal at 30? And also, now because you're nowhere near it, how do you feel?
It's actually about 25. But
oh, you said that you wanted to wait.
Be a millionaire by 25. Yeah. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. No. So
Olu's taking a mic.
No, the reason I'm laughing there is because I'm like, okay, never mind.
Okay, yeah, never mind. No, the reason why, because I had an idea. I think Pab, I shared it with you. I had during dissertation, I had an idea of. Actually, I'll share it now because I think it's already been released. Someone released it before me, but I had plenty of time to do it. It was through dissertation when you're doing your bibliography or your references. It got quite laborious trying to keep to one style of referencing, whether it's Harvard style or whatever style it would be. And then usually when you're writing a dissertation, you'll do all your references in between, but you'll leave the references, the part at the end, after the addendum, right to the end. And then you're kind of scrambling the last maybe hour or two before the deadline and trying to get everything in the correct order because it needs to be, all needs to be the same. It needs to be in sequence. So my idea was, rather than having to do it yourself manually and be prone to errors, was on the back of every book you reference, you use the ISBN and use your phone or the camera to scan the ISBN of the book, and it will come out with a style, whether you wanted to do Harvard style referencing or the other style referencing, and how you'd incorporate that within your actual text in your writing, and also at the end of your referencing. And that was the idea I had, because I know many students, we all face the same problem of having that referencing part very boring, very prone to errors. And I thought, if this was to be released and targeted as university students, postgraduates, and those doing doctorates, it would be very lucrative and be very attractive, even if it was 99p on the Apple Store. So that was my kind of way to achieving that goal. And I had someone to help me, but it just never took off because I started working, and I kind of just lost that interest because I passed that stage of writing my dissertation. So it didn't resonate with me very highly anymore. I lost the passion, so to speak.
Right now, that's all who's listening to is vexed, boy.
Why?
Because he's like, why didn't you try and bring me in?
Like,
why didn't you try to partner with me? You could have made it happen.
We? You mean I?
Okay, so Daniel, so obviously at 20, you didn't get 25. You're not a millionaire yet, or at that stage. How do you feel?
Well, I felt.
I felt fine.
Okay. No. I was annoyed because I had so much time to release it, being first to market. And then when I checked, someone had already done it and released something. So to that regard, I was annoyed because I could have done something and helped people, because it'd been an app that would help people and relieve a lot of stress that people face, because number one, dissertation is stressful in its own right. And number two, having to reference from different sources, books, journals, websites, etc., is also long as well. But then it came to a point where, like you said, we have achieved and accomplished other things in life. And I think sometimes we achieve goals, but we don't necessarily celebrate them or take time to reflect and actually be thankful for achieving them. For example, when we all started university, our goal was to graduate. Yeah, we graduated, and I think on the 26th of July, it was 7 years since we graduated. And yeah, we celebrated that, but as time goes on, you almost kind of knock it and don't necessarily value it anymore. I'm not saying sit down and dwell on your achievements and accomplishments and not move forward, but whilst we achieve each milestone, we need to celebrate it. Like purchasing a house, you're happy, you achieve a goal that you've worked probably months and worked very hard to achieve. But when you've got the key sign the contract, it's almost just like thrown to the back of your mind. Yeah, you should want to progress and move on to your next objective and next goal, but also at that particular period in time, be grateful and celebrate that success, because you need to live in the moment. And what you're achieving, not many have. Many more have achieved it, but not many have. And you have set out and achieved the goal that you put before yourself.
Yeah, it's true.
But you didn't make $1 million though.
No,
I'm playing. No, I'm playing.
But you didn't get married.
That was low, Daniel.
But you didn't get married.
I heard you the first time. You didn't need to say it twice. No, but you're right. We spoke about it a couple of episodes ago. You got to live in the moment. I think a lot of times we don't. We overlook our achievements and we just like, oh, what's next? But we don't actually take time to celebrate ourselves, celebrate our own achievements and what we've been able to accomplish. Because I honestly believe when we don't reach a specific goal, most of the time it's because we've achieved something else, or we've done something else, or we focused on something else.
Oh, cool. So what are we saying then? Everything in USD from now on, yeah?
You know what we could do if you guys want to be vulnerable? Yeah? Why don't we say what our goals are going to be, or what our milestone are going to be when we're 35? And then
I thought Ollie was ready for that net worth conversation. I said,
All money in.
I'm ready to share that when you guys are ready, man.
which one? The goals or the net worth?
Both.
The Bitcoin one.
Net worth. Let's talk then. Go on.
Bitcoin. Okay, so what are we talking about? Cash in bank? Are we talking about assets? Which one?
Guy, bro.
Nah, joking.
Wait, didn't we try and have this conversation before? And then someone said about assets and then cash in hand and then stocks and then all this other stuff.
I got to speak to my financial advisor to get a breakdown of everything.
Is it?
No, but what I'm saying is I think we should, if you guys want to, but we're recording this podcast, why don't we say or set some achievements or goals that we want to reach when we're 35? And you never know, we'll listen back to this. We'll probably still be doing this podcast, but on a bigger scale. And we can actually play this back and say, hey, we actually achieved this goal.
I want to be recording this podcast in different locations, different cities, with an audience live.
Dope. I'll go next.
I'll go next.
I'll go
Okay.
next quickly. By the age of 35, I want to be married. Yeah. So before I turn,
By the age,
before I turn
by the
35, I'll be married.
by the age of 35, I want to be able to have this podcast in a different language. Us speaking in a different language.
Wait, stop. Pause. You've been living in Switzerland for how long? Can you still speak Swiss German yet?
I can speak enough to get by, man.
Enough
Not
to
enough
get
to
by.
do this podcast. Why do you do your book review in Swiss German?
Yes,
But you guys won't understand what I'm saying, so what's the
it
point?
doesn't
I
matter.
normally
It
don't
doesn't matter.
understand what
We'll
you're
use
saying, so
something to
it
convey.
doesn't change anything.
It's still a picture book.
No, 35, let's have this podcast in a different language.
Sure.
Sure.
By 35, I would like to be married with 2 kids.
Jeez.
Talk about.
Inshallah, my brother. Inshallah.
Hey, there is a long way to go. All right, book review. What we saying?
I don't think anyone took that seriously enough, but that's fine.
I did take
Took
it
what
serious.
seriously enough?
No, people.
Yeah, I'm being serious.
Okay, no, maybe Olu and
Okay, I'll be serious. I want. I'll say we want to be married.
you gonna say we'll get what? Remarried or married? What are you gonna say?
I want to have. I want to have had. I don't know how many kids, but I know I want to have a set of twins.
Woo!
By 35.
So you're gonna keep trying until you get twins.
That's what I'm saying.
That's one of those goals that
I'm done. Yo, that one's
Identical as well.
That one's out of your control, man.
I know. To some degree, but I want identical.
that one's out of your control.
To some degree, Daniel. What kind of
because twins run in the family and they missed the generation. That's why.
Okay. So why don't we wrap it up with what would you say to somebody now that is getting quite anxious and frustrated at the fact that they're turning 25, they're turning 30, they're turning 35, and they haven't quite reached what they set out to reach?
For me is
I would say just.
For me is evaluate the importance of the goal. That's the first thing. So if it's as important as something like marriage, it's not something you should rush into. That's a life commitment. So it's not, you shouldn't put a time constraint on it. Just make sure you find and marry the right partner. If it's something more like, okay, I want to travel a certain amount of places, or I want to do a certain amount of things before I turn 30, then review your life and see why didn't you achieve that goal. It might be because you achieved other goals, so celebrate those goals, and then just reevaluate, see the importance of it, and then set new goals for it.
I would simply say, ask yourself the why, and then adjust your actions accordingly.
No, actually, I would just say you don't need to rush everything as much as you're trying to do it, because every day, if you're making a little bit of progress is still always progress. So if it doesn't happen 1 year or 2 year,
I would say
in the time,
yeah.
Then, yeah.
Something actually, it's actually a nice segue into the book review. But it's what I try to keep telling myself is you are always where you should be. So just continue to trust the process.
Trust the process. There's so many successful people that made it at a later stage in their life. Look at what was it, KFC?
KFC,
Exactly.
Colonel Sanders.
Look at Bezos.
Disney.
Yeah,
Disney.
He quit his job at 31 and started there. There's so many people.
Sam Walton.
There's so many people. So
And Daniel Johnson.
what's he done? But like the piece said, trust the process and enjoy the journey. Life is a journey, man. Cool. So let's move on to the part that everyone has been waiting for.
Oh, this guy. But why? Yeah.
I'm your hype man. I'm hyping you up, man.
Why did he do that?
Okay.
No, so what's interesting about this book review is actually a nice segue into what we've actually been discussing. So the book that I want to put on the table today and talk about is called The Practicing Mind. It's master any skill or challenge by learning to love the process. So develop focus and discipline in your life by Thomas Sterner. So what I want to do is effectively go through some of the key chapters and the key messages that stood out to me when I was reading it, and then sort of walk towards a summary. And then I've got one or two questions to ask you guys about overall your perspective on the process and things like that.
Sounds good.
If there's anything as I'm going through it that stands out, just say. And cool. So the first thing that the book opens up with in the first chapter, which I like, is that it says, if you're not in control of your thoughts, then you're not in control of yourself. Without self-control, you have no real power, regardless of whatever you accomplish. So that was one of the first open. If I go into sort of more of the process, not the product. So on the second chapter, which talks about process, not the product, it says that when you focus on the process, the desired product takes care of itself. But when you focus on the product, you immediately begin to fight yourself and experience restlessness, frustration, impatience with the actual process. One of the things that also I mentioned earlier in the episode, which I find really resonated well with me, which said, you're always where you should be, every single point in time. So a lot of times we always tend to forget how far we've come, and we always tend to want to be further than we actually are. And we forget to remind ourselves that based on how much we've invested in ourselves, based on how much we've worked with other people, how much we've served, we are exactly where we need to be in that particular process. So that I think is an important understanding, because it brings a level of patience as you're going along your journey. Daniel, you mentioned this one earlier. A classic example of where perhaps we forget about the process and more focus on the end goal is if you look at school. So in school, the grade is everything and the knowledge was nothing. So we could probably all read off our GCSE grades, subject by subject. But if I asked each other to explain kind of what you learned in year 10 and year 11, you most likely forget. So how do we it's interesting insights on how we can sort of move ourselves closer towards understanding why it's more important to focus on the process and not the product. Another thing that I liked what it said was that when we think about something that we've achieved well in the past or we've acquired, usually what happens is the process comes to mind and not the product. So if we think about going back to university, we think about how we achieved, in some cases, the first or the 2-1. We tend to think about the sort of long nights, strenuous nights when we was working, as opposed to the actual grade itself. Another section, which is around creating habits that we desire. So it says that expectations are tied to a result or product. We usually think things should be a certain way right now, and if they're not, then and only when they get to a certain point, then I'll be very happy. And what I like is that it says that when you start to experience these kind of emotions, it's an indicator that you have fallen out of the process and out of the present moment. And so keep going back and remembering that you are exactly where you should be in this particular process and point in time. It's very tough, and we can sort of discuss it a little bit later in terms of how you keep this level of patience and understanding. The last section I'll just touch on is it talks about perception change creates patience. So when we are, and this happens, you can even think about examples in your own life. When we're impatient, we experience negative emotions. And when we are patient, suddenly everything in life is A-okay. It's a process is a natural result of staying focused. No, progress, sorry, is a natural result of staying focused on the process of doing anything. When you stay on purpose, focus on the present moment, the goal comes towards you with ease. However, when you constantly focus on the goal you're aiming for, you actually push it away instead of pulling it towards you. So I think it's really, again, interesting perspectives on, we all kind of write down, if you think about a vision, if you think about visionary boards, you think about writing down your goals. What we tend to do is we do a very good job in mapping out the visionary board. We do a very good job in mapping out the goals. But do we do a good enough job in actually writing down what the process looks like and falling in love with the process more than the actual goal?
That's something we don't do, man. A lot of us.
Yeah.
I think whenever we start off stuff, you enjoy the process, but slowly it's just, I need to achieve this goal. I need to achieve this goal. And
Straight.
you've got to enjoy the journey. Otherwise, what are you doing it for? Like, honestly, what are you doing it for?
I think it's even like more than enjoying. It's more like the goal is the journey. You see, so it's a tough. I think it takes several months, probably years, to really understand it and internalize it, because we're constantly looking at that end goal: the house, the car, the family, and it's just, and then whatever it takes to get there, we'll get there. But I want to arrive at the destination. Just three other points I want to touch on, and then I just got a couple of questions for us all. One of the things also, like it says that most of the anxiety that we experience in life comes from feeling that there is an endpoint of perfection in everything that is involved in ourselves. So it taps into, if you think about the negative emotions, the frustrations, the anxiety, all comes from the fact that we focus effectively too much on the end goal versus going through and learning that skill through the process. The problem, this is an interesting one. The problem with patience and discipline is that developing each of them requires both of them. And the last one is the real thrill of acquiring anything, whether it's an object or a personal goal, is your anticipation of the moment of receiving it. The real joy lies in creating and sustaining the stamina and patience needed to work for something over a period of time. So I mean, it has, again, great perspectives on the process versus focusing on the goal. And my question, when I was going over this, my question to you guys was, what do you guys actually think about falling in love with the process? And I mean, we've touched a little bit on with the episode, but what's your honest? Because Gary V talks about this a lot, right? And there's a lot of YouTube videos around the process. But when you come back to your own real life, how does that work? Does it work?
I think the process, you don't enjoy it when you're in it. I'll be honest, you don't necessarily enjoy it, or you don't enjoy the lows. You enjoy when it's the highs, but really and truly you learn through the lows. I think when you really retrospectively look back and you probably reach the destination, you will then appreciate the journey and the process you went through, because that's what refined you and made you better as an end result. But whilst you're in it, you don't see the necessary, you might not see the end point because you're so consumed with trying to get through or overcome the obstacle or battle you're currently facing, that the end goal is still there, but it's not necessarily in sight. It's on the horizon, but you can't see it. It's blurred. But when you get there, you then appreciate the process.
So how do we enjoy the process more?
I think you have to I think it's an element of keeping your eye on the end goal, keeping the goal, the destination in sight, and not losing focus. But maybe being tunnel visioned, but remaining focused, but also flexible.
I think that's for me. That's also the big driver. Always thinking about what's that end goal in mind. I think if it's, say, if you're going through you're purchasing a property, for example, and your process is taking longer than you would have liked. There's additional things that are being asked. It looks like it could fall through, etc. But if you know that the end goal is, okay, once I have this, it'll be generating cash flow for me, it kind of keeps you pushing through, keeps you looking for the next opportunity that comes up. And I think even with the waking up early P that we've been doing the last couple of months now, that in itself, I didn't enjoy doing that before, and now it's actually become part of the process where I know that if I continue to do that, and it helps me become more productive, again with the end goals that I have in mind, it keeps that motivation.
Yeah. So my answer to the question I asked also about how do you enjoy the process, because as you guys have noticed, I've recently started doing it, is actually sharing with the world your process. So there's a reason why I timestamp when I wake up. There's a reason why I timestamp when I'm in the gym, because what I've realized is that by sharing the process and not keeping it to myself, one, you inspire, and two, there's an element of the world keeping you accountable to what you're doing. So I'm not going to want to timestamp for 2 weeks and then stop. That's just it's not in my nature. I'm going to want to keep it going for as long as I can, ideally forever. So I've found actually that, because as you know, I was a big believer in not wanting to share anything. I was, private P, ghost P doesn't share
You got to
anything.
tell me that twice. You got to tell me that
So
twice.
I don't want to. And then I've seen I've completely looked at it differently. But I find that sharing the process, while other people may turn around and say, "Oh, look at him, he's sharing the steam room again, or he's sharing this again," actually, it's keeping it keeps you going, and it does really inspire people. So that's something just to keep in mind. Not everybody wants to share what they're doing. It can seem sometimes monotonous, but it does. I think it's quite powerful.
And I think you start to truly enjoy the journey when you see results. Maybe that's just me. So I enjoy the journey,
the small wins.
the small wins, because I think the problem is sometimes when you're looking at a big goal, you can get demoralized where you're like, oh, I'm so far away from it. But I see as, if your goal is to just continuously improve, like just be better than you were yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you start to truly enjoy the journey. So if it's like, let's say with a house process, you're like, okay, I'm doing this to better myself in the long run. So when you're going through the harder process where it's taking so long, the bank are taking so long, I've got to ask so many questions, I've got to send all these forms. If you continuously look, okay, I've done more than I did yesterday, I'm closer to it than yesterday, you start to enjoy that whole journey process versus seeing it as a burden or why is it so difficult. But yeah. One quick last question I had. Does the book talk about, and you might have already mentioned this, but comparing yourself to other people?
Uh, no, actually, it talks a little bit about the ego and the observer, not so much about comparing yourself to other people. You know what's interesting? We can just nip it in the bag now. Comparing yourself to other people is just comparison.
Mm,
It's nothing to do with success.
exactly.
So and that's is plain and simple. And someone shared this with me the other day. Is like success. One way to describe success is being able to do the most with what you have yourself, and like you said, improving day by day.
Yeah.
But looking at the next man is called comparison. No,
Mm.
it's not called. So, but no, it doesn't have a particular chapter on that. It does have a chapter actually interesting on what we can learn from children. If you want to know more, you have to buy the book.
Dope.
Let's just say success is tons of discipline, and regret is tons of. Sorry, forget that.
I just want to wrap up.
Sounds like,
I want
do you know what?
to.
It actually sounds like Daniel and Pabilo went to Tomorrowland as well.
Real quick, I just want to wrap it up with two quick lines. So just real quick. So it says real peace and contentment in our lives comes from realizing that life is a process to engage in, a journey down a path that we can choose to experience as magical. When we shift towards both focusing on and finding joy in the process of achieving instead of having a goal, we have gained a new skill. So the book is called The Practicing Mind, Developing Focus and Discipline in Your Life by Thomas Sterner.
Guys.
So thank you all for staying tuned to episode 28 of Take Flight Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any feedback for us or any topics you'd like us to discuss, please DM us on Instagram at Take Flight Podcast or email us at takeflightpodcast@gmail.com. See you next week. Take care and God bless.
Happy Friday.
Take off, take